A lot can happen in 10 years. What are you going to do with yours? Yes, that is me on the screen there. Young, could barely grow facial hair. I was doing a lot of things 10 years ago. I was trying to act, I was cooking, and I had a rap career. And sometimes I did them all at the same time. Rapping and then cooking in between sets. And free food really gets people out there, and that's one of the reasons why I did that. But I had a lot of optimism at that time. I knew that the journey would be the reward. I didn't know how I was gonna get to where I wanted to go, but I knew that if I kept trying to be better every single day than I was the day before, then I was on the right path. So a little backstory, my family comes from a long line of chefs. Back in the 50s, during Jim Crow, Black people didn't really have the opportunities to go out and eat at restaurants even when they said it was legal. So they formulated juke joints in the back of their houses, convenience stores, restaurants. And my family was always the ones that were entertaining and had the restaurants. So when my mother moved to the Bronx and she saw babysitters raising us, she wanted to figure out a way how to spend more time with us. So she started a catering company from the house. And very much against the law, I became her first employee at 5 years old. I couldn't go out on events though, I was too young. So my sister would go out with her and I was stuck at the house messing with all the ingredients. Kind of like mad scientisting my way into dishes. And that's where I got my knack for creativity with cooking. But I started to veer off on the wrong path. I started to stay out late when I was supposed to come home. And this was at a very young age still. So my mother didn't want to see me in a body bag or a jail cell. So she told me I was going on a 2-week vacation to Nigeria. I was very excited to go. I quickly realized that it was not a 2-week vacation. This is actually me when she told me it was going to be 2 years for me to learn respect. And while I was out there, I picked up a bunch of things, mainly to appreciate the things that I have here. Running water, electricity, access to food. We had to cultivate our own vegetables. We had to raise our own livestock. If we wanted a 10-piece chicken wing bucket, we had to raise 5 chickens, and that took about 4 months. So I learned a really important lesson on the access to food and how we cannot take that for granted. So I came back to America with a new appreciation for life, but I quickly got into the same things that led me out there. And I got into deeper things. I started to join a gang. I started to sell drugs. And it wasn't until I saw this man walk across the stage and I thought of my mother and I thought of my grandparents operating restaurants where we couldn't even sit in the same places because the color of our skin. I realized that this person has gotten to the highest office in the world and that I can't throw my life away. And I can also achieve anything I put my mind to. So I flushed everything down the toilet. I'll admit I smoked all the weed. And I moved to Louisiana. And I started cooking, started doing the only thing I really knew how to do. And I remember I was working a job and I would only see this person once every 3 weeks. And I asked him, where are you? Like, what's going on? And he was like, oh, I work for the BP oil spill. You know, the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico that's pumping out millions of gallons of oil? I was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, I mean, I'm out there. They pay $2,100 a week. We have to cook for about 30 people. You get to create your own menu. And I was like, how much did you say you get paid a week? And he was like, $2,100. I was, sign me up. Because if I go out there for 3 weeks, I can't lose. I win in this situation. And I didn't have much experience cooking on my own, but I went out there and it was my first time in charge. I actually became the executive chef of the boat within the 3 weeks I was there. And it was my turn to lead the charge. It was the first time I was creating the menus. I was ordering. I was creating the meal plans. And I was also expressing myself through my cuisine. I loved it. So after the oil spill was cleaned up, or the summer ran out, I moved back to New York City. And I started cooking and working at more affluent restaurants. But I kind of missed that knack for creativity. But one day I was walking through Soho and I walked past a store just like this. And I walked in, just struck up a conversation with the store clerk. And she told me she happened to be the owner of the store and they were getting ready for their launch party. And I was like, you excited? She was like, yes, I'm very excited, but the only thing I don't have is a caterer. And I was like, ma'am, you never asked me what I did. And she said, you're a caterer? And I'm like, yes. She said, how old are you? I was like, that is irrelevant. I'm a caterer. It seems like you're in a bind. Do you need services or not? She was like, yes, I really want these miniature cheesecakes. Do you know how to make cheesecakes? I said, I'm a chef. I just told you that. Like, yes, I can make cheesecakes. I'll see you at 11 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. I go home and I'm freaking out because I've never made cheesecakes in my entire life. But I get a recipe from my sister, very similar to this. Just a list of ingredients, the temperature to put it in. Now, for those of you who know how to make cheesecake, it takes about an hour. It's very simple. Cream, sugar, lemon zest, maybe some milk, vanilla beans. I have to set it in a water bath and a graham cracker crust, and that takes about an hour. You have to let it cool for another hour. Get it wrong one time, it's okay. Get it wrong 2 times, you're starting to sweat a little bit. Get it wrong 3 times and you're screwed. Now, it's my 4th time doing this. I'm freaking out. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. I gotta be there at 11. But at that point in time, I realize many things. I can hear the hustle and bustle of the city coming alive. But I can also look back at that moment and see that I had found my passion. If I was able to stay up for 9 hours doing one thing and one thing only, with no music, no TV, no talking to anybody, I was just so focused on getting this one thing right that I knew that I can do that for the rest of my life. So I did the tasting, knocked it out of the park. I became the official caterer for the store, which was amazing. But I still didn't really have a catering company. I was talking out of my ass. So I needed capital. And how was I gonna get that capital? So I was coming home one day on the train from work, and it was 11 o'clock at night, and this kid bursts through the door. And he's selling candy for a basketball team on the subway. And I noticed a couple things. 1, this kid was out way past his bedtime. And 2, he just made like $5 in 2 minutes. I was like, damn, how much, the 8-hour shift of that? What if you did like 6 days a week of that straight? So I quickly realized this kid was making way more money than I was, tax-free. So I went into work the next day. I thanked them so much for the opportunity. Honestly, I was very, very honored to work there. I went straight to Costco and bought a shit ton of candy and got on the subway and started selling my own candy operation. And that was actually the box that I put together, that Franken box. I wanted to make sure I had everything. If I walked past you, you were gonna be craving something. And in 2 months, I saved up $20,000 and Coterie Catering was born. This is actually my flyer, and yes, that is the chicken and waffle that got me kicked off of Top Chef, but we're not here to talk about that, okay? We're here to talk about what are you gonna do with your 10 years. So I got a band together. Admittedly, people I went to high school with, but a band nonetheless, and we started Coterie Catering, and we did everything. We did parent-teacher conferences. We did soccer practices. We did events with Matt Damon. But I felt like I was hitting a glass ceiling even though I was getting all of this press at 20 years old. But I was like, you know what, I'll be fine. What could go wrong? 11/11/11 came around. Now it's a cool succession of numbers, but it's also my birthday. So I was like, the world is ready for Chef Kwame. This is my time. It's a lucky number. Like, come on. So I started an event. I rented out a venue on 14th Street in New York City, and I hired a PR company, and it was supposed to be for 50 or 60 people. I was like, I'll knock this out. What could go wrong? Everything really went wrong that night, honestly. I overproduced the event, so 200 highly demanding, hungry New Yorkers came out to this event. I had no idea how to get food out of the kitchen, and I failed miserably. When I walked out, after everyone walked out that were still hungry, I went to the hostess stand and my iPad was stolen. And then when I walked out of the venue, finally to go home, I looked up and my car was towed. And at that moment in time, I realized I had ambition. I realized I had passion, but I needed other things to formulate the pieces of the puzzle. And I needed to take a step back in order to take a giant leap forward. So I drove up to the Culinary Institute of America. It's regarded as the Harvard of culinary schools. And I enrolled, I got in, and I started making friends quickly. And in trading war stories of how we got into the school, we talked about the places that we worked beforehand. And when it got to me, I told them about this catering company. And they were just excited to come and help me out on the weekends just to get some hands-on experience in New York City, that I was able to help pay my way through culinary school from their help. And some of those friends are still with me to this day. But my mother was the phone call that I really made. And I said, Ma, I really want to go to this school. I don't know how I'm going to afford it. And she said to me, son, I want you to have the life that I didn't have. So I'm going to give you my life savings, and hopefully you can have a better outcome than I did. So she gave me every last penny she had, and we scraped together our money, and we took it 1 month at a time. I ended up speaking on behalf of all the students throughout my tenure there. I ended up competing in a hot dog eating championship. I did not win, but it was a highlight of my time there. But while I was there, I got addicted to the art of excellence. I went to the best school, so I figured I had to work for the best. And when working for the best, I found out about the Michelin Guide and the James Beard Foundation and the world's 50 best. So I seeked out the top restaurants in the world, and I went to work for them. And then I went to travel around the world to start my own pop-ups, to get my own experience, to find my voice, to continue pushing forward. And I ended up getting enough capital to open up my own restaurant that you see behind me. And that restaurant was the culmination of my dreams. It was my time and it was my birthright. But we were unexperienced and we were underfunded. $200,000 that went into this turned into a cool $2 million. We opened our doors with fanfare. It was beautiful. Chairs flown in from Europe, handmade tables from Nashville, globes of lights that were hand blown, and boom, closed in 3 weeks. It was the biggest failure at that point of my life. I was smeared across every single publication that you can imagine. I actually didn't read them up until I was creating these slides, and some of them were actually pretty good. But I realized I had determination, ambition, passion. And those things, plus a key ingredient, can lead you to success. At that moment, I had failed miserably. And I could have stayed down and let those people dictate the way that I live or the way that I look at myself. And I'll admit that I did believe them for a second. But once that second was up, I got right back up. And that fear of failure is the key ingredient, no pun intended, for the recipe for success. And after that fear of failure was gone, 3 months later, I opened up a fast casual restaurant. And then I got a chance to open up a restaurant that really told the story of my ancestors, Kith and Kin. And in 2 years, we turned it to one of the best restaurants in the world. I never knew when I was selling candy that I would make it to the James Beard Foundation. I never knew when I failed miserably in that club in New York City that I would make it on the cover of Food and Wine magazine. I'm not defined by my failures, but my failures are also the foundation that push me forward. See, you need to know where you came from to know where you're going, constantly looking back into your life to find inspiration for the future. Recently, I left Kith and Kin a couple days ago to forge my own path, to control my own narrative. You all are in control of your own narrative. It's really up to you what you do with it. A lot can happen in 10 years. So what are you going to do with yours? Thank you.